Hey, Mark Lyford here, and welcome to the Get Real podcast. Today, I'm very pleased to have David Schloss from ConvertROI.com. We've never met face to face, but we've spoken quite a bit. And David's somebody that actually I've been monitoring for years online as to what he's doing. I'll tell you about that later on why. But welcome, David.
Appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.
So it's fine. I'm really pleased that you've come on. Tell people about what you do, what you're all about, and just give people, for people that don't know you, a bit of a
Sure.
lowdown on about you.
So, what I am most known for day to day is I run social media advertising. Specifically, Facebook and Instagram is my bread and butter, right? That's what I've been known for years. That's what I run the most of, and that's what I basically get paid money to do every single day. Now, I look at myself as more of an ad strategist because I do understand more outside of just Facebook and Instagram, but nearly every conversation I have starts with those two networks. And along the way, in my now 17 years of running ads, of course, I've introduced other networks along the way and essentially just do it for people, right? So they come to me, they want to either develop a plan so we can consult with them on how to exactly execute the plan, or it's like, hey, you don't want to do any of this stuff, no worries. My team and I could take care of it for you. And so expanded many other offerings, TikTok, we do in Google ads, specifically YouTube quite a bit. But at the end of the day, people still know me for Facebook and Instagram, and that's what they come to me for.
It's funny because when we started talking, so I, for people that have listened to this podcast before, they've heard me talking about Real Entrepreneur for way too long. It's finally now a reality. And I was speaking to David last year at some point about, right, what's the bottom line to get started when I'm ready. And I meet so many people that never take the plunge into paid advertising. They rely on affiliates, and I'm not saying affiliate marketing is no good, but to me, the services you offer, which is why when the time's right, I will be using you as my ad guy for Real Entrepreneur. A lot of people never take that plunge, or certainly people I know. But to me, it's the only way to scale. I look at people that I know. I know Dean Holland really well as a friend of mine, and he turned his back on a couple of things. He turned his back on the perpetual launch mode, which is just a crazy hamster wheel that you never get off if you're not careful.
Yep.
And it still blows my mind with the affiliate game. I mean, I've been out of IM for years and just kind of crept into the outskirts of it with the Front Core Dynamics software business we're doing with my partners. But the idea that people get paid an affiliate commission, to me, that's what they're doing it for. But it's a lot of, certainly within the IM side, it's like reciprocation's expected, and then by definition, over a period of time, you're dealing with one very incestuous list of people that are getting promoted to. And I
Yep.
don't get it. I've said I just don't get it now with paid advertising. And again, I'm using Dean Holland as an example because he turned his back on all of that many years ago, and he is self-sustainable. Yes, his advertising costs have gone up. He's working on, maybe because his offer's 3 years old now, he's working on that and new
Yep.
things, but he's self-sustainable, and he knows, because his numbers are long established enough, he knows for every customer he gets in, pretty much within a day, he should have an ROI back and be in positive territory.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been able to scale it. And again, you can always look at other people. Like, there's always people doing far more. The ad spend Dean has a month, some people will blow in a day, but it's
Yep.
it's all relative to different people. But he's doing six figures in ad spend a month now,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got a scaled business. And to me, that's the secret of paid advertising, because unless you're doing that, unless you've got a really massive list and you're on the next level for affiliate marketing, you're never gonna, to me, be able to scale. And that's definitely something that, yeah, when the time's right, as we said before we started recording, once the membership is big enough with Real Entrepreneur, I'm going to be getting hold of you and starting, which I can't wait for. I'm impatient by nature. But again, you have to wait for certain things to be right. How have you seen the landscape change over the last few years with the clients that you've got? It's, to me, on the outside looking in, it seems advertising costs have gone up.
Yeah.
Have you got any input on how the landscape of what you've been doing, not necessarily just Facebook and Instagram, but across the board?
Yeah, if you look at, let's say, if you look at it in 3 to 4 year increments, you can obviously see that the ad costs have gone up, right? But ever since iOS 14, let's just say even 2020 for that matter, a lot of the costs had to shift because remember, Facebook had the whole Cambridge Analytica situation. Every network has been having to shift from cookie-based pixels to server side, right? There's a lot of additional technology things that had to be adjusted and or improved upon due to, Apple making changes, due to what Google was doing in terms of making changes. And so every time there's been a new evolution of a network, cost has gone up. Now, has cost gone up so much that it's like a click that used to cost $1 is now $2? No. There's a lot of other factors that give you an idea as to why a ad is getting you $1 a click versus $2. Now, are you able to get penny likes and penny clicks and all that stuff like we used to get back in the day? No, very, very rarely does that happen. You have to have an ad that basically goes viral in order to get those numbers. But you can still see that there's a slight increase in various markets just looking at the CPMs, right? So when I used to launch a BizOp offer, I'd see that the CPMs would range anywhere from on the low end, $20 to maybe like 35, right? So that's the cost for the delivery of the ads, right? In various interest-based terms or even lookalikes for BizOp. Now the standard is 50 to 60. Right? It's more than doubled, but my click cost is relatively the same. Why? My ad knowledge has improved. I know what gets people to click. I'm better at writing messaging. So naturally, I could balance things out with just better quality ads. Now, let's not forget, advertising now has become more video oriented. Back then, we're talking like I've been running ads since 2007. So most of the network was image based up until around like maybe 14 through 16, 2014 through 16. You start seeing a lot of the transition to video ads. And it wasn't even as heavy as it is now, but it was just you start seeing more and more video ads. And as more video ads came into play, you could see that image ads were not as effective. Now, they were still greatly effective, but not as effective. Today, because the majority of the network is video, the people with images are getting great clicks again, right? It's just the networks evolve. Now, when people are using the idea of it's too expensive as their default answer, you can clearly tell who hasn't been running ads actively versus those who have. Because someone like me who is spending millions of dollars a month for people across various industries, I'm able to see how variable these costs are. There are times of the year where you see the cost just drops. I mean, literally drops to levels that you haven't seen since 2016, maybe 2018, because of the fact that it's seasonality, right? If you're promoting something in the health and fitness space in January, you're going to kill it because that's when people look into health and fitness. But if you try to promote that in August, no, people are on vacation, right? It's one of those things that you have to be aware of in the advertising cycle. It's the same thing with health, wealth, and relationship offers in general. There's seasonality to it. Your BizOp offers do great at the beginning of the year. They do great in the middle of the year. And they do great in the end of third quarter, early fourth quarter, because people know that if they haven't made a change in their life and they need to start a business, they're going to do it during those times of the year, right? Same health and fitness, certain times of the year do great. Summer body, get started early spring, early part of the year for New Year's resolutions. And then, you have that Q3, Q4 time period again, where it's like, you know what, I don't want to end the year on a bad note. I want to get myself in shape, right? Everything has that seasonality component to it. But if you don't know these things and you're just going into it, you automatically assume it's expensive. You've never really run an ad. You don't write multiple messages for your ad, meaning copy, right? You haven't seen how things fluctuate as you change up your language. Sometimes it could be as little as changing one line. All of a sudden, your ad's effective versus not. And then video versus image, right? Are your videos with you on the screen? Are you faceless? Are you doing someone else's voice versus yours? Images, are they AI based? Are they something that you personally create? Like there's all sorts of variables. And I just think a lot of people use the it's too expensive default answer because some other person has said ads are getting expensive. It's relative because what
Yeah,
might be
of course,
expensive
yeah.
to you is not to someone else, right? So naturally, I believe ad costs have gone up, but not so much so that it's impossible to be running ads. You could still be incredibly effective. As you've seen with people like Dean, it's like, yeah, of course things are going to shift after a couple years of running the same offer,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna get a little bit stale, but
yeah,
it
absolutely.
doesn't mean that he can't still be
Of
profitable,
course, yeah,
you know?
absolutely, yeah.
So
No,
yeah.
it still is. It's, how have you seen changes with AI in the advertising space? AI is really in the last 12 months come into the fore. How have you seen, if anything, changes happening with that?
Yeah, it's implementation that has really changed speed of implementation. And so, for example, we're able to create personas for clients to where it's like, it's David's persona. So I could plug in stuff that I want to talk about, click enter, and it's like, boom, ad copies ready to go based on my writing style, my verbal style of communicating with people, how I've written ads in the past, how I write blog articles. I can feed all that into, let's say, Chat GPT, and it'll understand my style. So then when I want to write a piece of copy, I can give it some bullet points and boom, I have an ad, right? Couldn't really do that before with speed. I would have all those same things, but then it would take a week or two to write some
Mm-hmm.
copy, right? Now it's like, give me 3 days. I could do 2 days of research and one day of just rotating different things out to get, the variations that I need in order to run some ads. And so the speed is great. The research possibilities are endless because now it's not just interest based research when it comes to Facebook and Instagram. It's like what creatives are doing great, what copy are people using, is it short form, is it long form, and all those things now take less time. So AI has made it a lot easier for us to just do the tasks that take literally to us, it felt like forever. It's like, oh man, we got to do 4 or 5 days of this before we can launch one person, right? And now multiply that by 10, right? So if you have to onboard 10 people at one time, it's like it could be 40 hours for one person just doing research. Now it's like, give me a couple hours, right? And that's for
Yeah.
one person. So I love to see how things have been implemented a lot faster. Also, for to be more on the granular side, the SOP side of like how to do things is so much easier because now I can bring on somebody brand new and be like, hey, you need to walk through this client on their entire onboarding, right? Account setup, making sure everything's connected to us, and then making sure we have all the assets we need. That used to be me having to walk them through everything manually. Now it's like everything's recorded, everything's in video format, it's in written format. It's like if it needs to be adjusted on the fly, it can be adjusted very quickly. It's like all these things that used to have to be done by hand, we don't have to do that as much anymore. Right? It's all dictated for us through AI, and we just record, and it's like, oh, there's everything we just said. Right? We just make simple edits. So yeah, it's helped a lot with getting things done faster. But then on the client side, when it comes to like let's say images, right? Before we just could we would have days where it's like we have you know basically designer's block, same thing as writer's block. It's like I don't know what to
Mm-hmm.
create. So we can go to Midjourney or any of these tools and just like get conceptual ideas of like what something would look like based on what we want to create, and just start typing things out. And it's like okay, if that's what Midjourney is creating for us based on what we believe we want to create, then that at least gives us a baseline of what we thought it would look like, and then we can work off of that. Because I still need my designers. Don't get me wrong; they understand the conversion components that a Midjourney can't
Mm-hmm.
understand yet, right? And so we're able to at least get the ideas out the way of like, oh, this would be an interesting way of like, creating this type of ad for this client. And then we could take that and use it as inspiration for what we end up creating at the end with all the conversion elements we want to include. Right. And so that has helped a ton. And then lastly, with something like video, it's great to be able to go to someone, say, hey, here's a script, which we could have written in ChatGPT, for example. Here's a script, read it, just dictate the whole thing for us, read it in a certain tone, make sure it's less than 60 seconds, blah, blah, blah. And then once you get it to us, we're going to create all this B-roll style video content that goes along with what you're saying. That way we can create multiple videos and you never had to show your face. Couldn't do that before without having a bunch of video editors and a lot of money, right? And so it saves us the ability of, well, the headaches that we used to have of hiring people and getting all these things in place and charging for it. It's like it used to be thousands and thousands of dollars to be like, I just need to get you a couple videos and they were all faceless and you need to read this and then, mesh it all together. We were mostly paying for time, right? Now I could do 90% of that. And then I could bring in one editor to clean it up to make sure everything looks good, makes sense. And then they could work their magic with those last 10%, right? Transitions, intro, outro, all that other stuff that not every single AI can do just yet. And I'm cool with at least 90% being done and saving.
How have you found effectiveness of AI created ad material compared to manually done? Have you found much difference?
I mean, there have been some cases where AI stuff has outperformed what we've created in-house, but it's not every single time. It's right now, I'd say if I had to put a percentage on it, it's still being refined, and it could just be our way of creating things in AI that's not as effective, I should say. But I'd say like 70% of the time, our stuff outperforms. Now, consider that on first draft, when we're testing our stuff versus what we create in AI, that can include copy, that could include the videos, that could include the images, right? But I don't typically go in and have an all AI ad, or it's 2 out of 3 components are AI and one's not. It's like I usually am looking at it as we'll create our own things first, split test our own stuff. And then once we have a couple winners from our stuff, what we've personally created in-house, then I bring on the AI side. So at least I know it's like, okay, these are already our. So now let me test my winners against some AI generated stuff. And if the AI stuff starts to outperform, oh my God, we're going to scale this thing to the moon because we already know that our stuff's already doing okay. Right. So we typically do it that way. But of course, I still use AI generated content as like a baseline. Right. It can write out a good amount of what I want to say, but it may not have personality. It may not have tonality. That's the part where I oftentimes am having to go back and adjust. Right. Even if I say write it like Frank Kern, it still doesn't always sound like Frank Kern. Right. I still have to go in there and change up the flow of it. That way it's more readable. And so, I'm still beating my AI tests, but we're talking about it's only been like what, a year and a half since this has been like the most available to us. And when it first came out, I was kicking its ass all the time. I was like, this stuff is not going to beat me. It's just not. And slowly, my percentage of winning has gone down. Like every week, it's like, okay, I'm losing a little more this week. That's okay. Because at some point, it's going to be 50-50. I'm just going to have to create our stuff and AI at the exact same time and deploy it all at one time. But until then, I'm going to keep doing it my way because it still works. But it's really good for the idea generation component. And our speed is just, it's 2 to 3x faster than it was before.
That's
the video
the key
side,
thing,
we still need a tweak.
Getting stuff done quicker is the biggest thing at the moment, from what you said.
Yeah. And
fascinating, man.
Content, our clients are like, I don't know what to create. It's like, let me give you my research template in ChatGPT and you just plug in everything and you'll have ideas for days. Right. And so, it helps with more than just creating the ads. It also helps with ideation.
Fascinating, man. How did you get started in this journey that you're on?
So in 2007, obviously there wasn't a lot of information around advertising, right? Not at least in the social media realm, because social media was still new. Back then, the big network was MySpace, and even they were going through their downfall, right? This was towards the time where they were eventually going to get bought. And they didn't have much of a ad network. And so the only networks that were being heavily pushed were like the traditional PPC networks, Yahoo, Google. Google search was already massive back then. And it was back when it was called Google Places, right? So it's like you had Google and you had Yahoo and AOL was still running ads and MSN before it was Bing, right? Like all these traditional PPC networks and a lot of the search, third-party search networks as well, Seven Search and all those other ones. So you basically learned PPC, and if you weren't doing PPC, you were doing SEO. That's pretty much what it was back then. And so I learned SEO and I learned traditional PPC just by reading blog posts because back then the big thing was how to make money blogging. Because if you knew SEO and you knew how to write instructional material, how-to material, and you put AdSense blocks on your blog site, you could make bank. You can make thousands of dollars a month, which back then was unheard of. To have a website up that looks like crap and make $10,000 a month, like that was insane. So I'm an 18-year-old in college, and I'm looking this stuff up, and I'm like, who is this guy that's making $12,000 a month blogging? Right, this was ProBlogger.com at the time, or ProBlogging.com, something like that. Darren Rouse, I remember his name. And so I was looking his stuff up, and John Chow was talking about make money online. And he's been around forever, right? He was doing all this stuff. And I'm like, who are these dudes writing about this stuff? And how are they actually making money online? So I started reverse engineering it all. Oh, they do SEO. Oh, they do PPC. Oh, they sell banner ads. And then along that way, when I was learning these things from my dorm, just little by little, all of a sudden Facebook decides that they're going to have an ad network. And I know this because I log into Facebook one day and there's a nice little banner on the right-hand side that says start running ads on Facebook. And I'm like, okay, interesting. Now, it was only available to corporate entities because back then you had to buy them in blocks. You had to buy it in like 20K blocks or 5K blocks. And obviously I wasn't going to do that. But once they opened it up from corporate entities to individual publishers or advertisers, then it was like, okay, cool. How much do I have to spend? $5 a day? No problem. I could throw $5. And I was able to test like ClickBank offers and back then it was mostly the affiliate network. So it's like ClickBooth and Market Leverage and all these CPA networks. And I would just take the links and just shove them into the network and everything would get approved because back then there was really no compliance. And so I learned through doing. There were no courses. I was just reading blogs and connecting the dots. I'm like, well, they're talking about PPC. This is a pay-per-click network, but it's social media. No one's really talking about social media advertising. So this is too new. I'm just going to have to learn it. I'm just going to have to figure it out. For about 4 or 5 years, I was just doing PPC with no coursework. I was figuring it out. My brain was connecting the dots while I was still doing SEO, while I was still building, let's just call them WordPress sites. I wasn't saying I was a professional designer by any means, but like I was really good at developing sites with pre-built themes and like manipulating them to look better. And then I was ranking them incredibly fast. And then I would bring up this conversation to clients because I was bringing on clients because I read an article that said one of the best businesses you can build is a local agency because it's consistent income. I'm like, that sounds great to me because I'm a broke college student. So I started to work with like bike shops and local lawyers and realtors and all that because a lot of them had no sites. So I'd build these sites, I'd rank them really fast. I'd get them to like literally within the top 5 spots within a couple weeks. And then I'm like, hey, you want to know what none of your competitors are doing? None of them are running ads. Oh, where would I run ads? Oh, you can run them in Google. I didn't know that. Oh, you can run them in Yahoo. Who uses Yahoo? Well, you'd be surprised, right? Back then, it was like lots of people. So I just started doing these things for people. And of course, they didn't have $10,000 a month to spend. They was $300 here, $500 there, because most people were spending thousands of dollars on SEO. It'd be like, here's $5,000 a month in SEO, but here's $200 on ads. So I was having to figure things out with very little ad spend on multiple networks. And thankfully, Facebook at the time was so new that I was like, oh, I could throw $5 at this thing and get like literally 400 clicks because it's a wild, wild west. No one even knows this exists. And so I got such an early start that by the time the internet marketer crowd wanted to start running webinars, my first webinar ad was in 2010.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, I remember just figuring things out as I go. And then the first real Facebook course I bought was like 2012. So I was already 5 years in before it was like, okay, someone else gets this as much as I do. I'm gonna go see what they're up to. Warrior Forum was still around back then, and it was like there was no Facebook courses. I'm like, interesting. No one knows about this, really? This is strange. And then of course all the Facebook stuff started popping up between 2013 to 16 when Teespring and Shopify came around and everyone started selling stuff through user IDs and all, just the wild, wild west still, right? We were all selling things for e-com. But by then I was already in the game. I was already running webinar ads. I was already running conversion-based stuff for people. Oh, I want to get leads to my ebook. Okay, no problem. $2 a lead here, dollar a lead there, because this stuff was still undiscovered up until 15, 16, when everyone and their mom started making a course saying how much you need to run Facebook ads, right? So I went a pretty fair amount of time just like offering multiple services because it's like people just didn't know. And I went all in on just running Facebook ads for people around 2011, 2012, because by then the narrative was shifting. Oh, you need to start running social media advertising, right? MySpace is out of the picture. Facebook is growing. LinkedIn was developed their network. Didn't really do much. Still doesn't do much to this day. Twitter was developing their network. It came out. It was all right back then. YouTube network came out. It was doing great, but no one knew it existed, right? So it's like all these things start popping up. But Facebook was the one that was like, we run ads in the feed. Right hand side, feed. And everyone's like, oh, feed is prime placement. I need to start running ads there. And that's when everything changed. So I've been doing this so long that there was a time where there were no courses, there were no gurus, right? Everyone's pages had 50,000 likes on them, and it only cost like $700, right? It was crazy. But, through all that, we all had to shift and evolve. I remember when the big thing was, oh my God, we're going from conversion pixels to the universal pixel script. And now it's like we're going from universal to conversion API and then iOS 14 and now it's iOS 18 or whatever it is now. So there's been every 2 to 3 years there's something. All right, there's another thing. Oh, the whole network's gonna crash and burn. Oh, this is gonna stop working. I've heard it. I've heard it. So it's 17 years now doing this, and nothing shocks me anymore. It's like
Of course,
I
yeah.
expect this to happen at some point. We're in another election cycle in the U.S., so I know ads are going to get crazy at some point this year. But it's one of those things that when you've been through it, you just sort of understand the lay of the land and what you got to do to prepare. So it's been a very interesting journey to say the least, and
What a
it changed
journey.
my life along the way.
What a journey. Was there anybody that was an inspiration to you for being an entrepreneur, wanting to be one?
It's it's interesting because the first person who gave me the idea of being an entrepreneur was actually a teacher of mine in high school. The only reason he was a teacher was because he retired from being a board of director for Campbell's Soup. So he made all this money, millions of dollars, and was like, I think I'm just going to give back to the kids now, and became a teacher. Right. So
Wow.
he tens of millions of dollars, stock options, the whole deal, sold out of everything, and was like, I'm just going to go be a teacher. And
Wow.
I was in a finance class in high school because my high school actually had like accounting and learning about investing. Like they call it the Academy of Finance. And it was like teaching high schoolers just finance. And it got my attention because I was a math whiz and I was like, anything that's math related, give it to me. So he was the first person to wake me up to entrepreneurship because I asked him one day, I'm like, how did you make your money? Because I was like, I know you're not just a teacher. Like you don't just do this stuff because you're like, I just want to be a teacher. Like, you know way too much
Yeah,
about
yeah,
this
yeah.
to just be a teacher. And then that's when he gave me the whole breakdown of like, this is what I used to do, and this is what my family does, and like all this stuff. And he told
Wow.
me, he's like, I would have never been able to do what I had done in my life if it wasn't for me starting my first business that then got bought, to then me being on the board, to then being here. And I was like, interesting. That's I've never would have thought of that. So my entire junior and senior year of high school, I basically was just asking this guy questions nonstop. What else can I do? What can I learn? Give me examples, like just all that. And when I went to college, I was already a freshman in college, and my thought was, I don't even want to work a job. I think I'm just here to network with people and have fun. That's literally what
Wow.
I did. I got my
They,
degree, but I never used it.
he was kind of your first mentor, though, really, more than just a teacher.
Yeah, he was essentially that. And then of course along the way, as I delved more into the online world, one of the first people that I really learned anything from was Justin Brook, who's still around to this day, right? He's still around. He's still putting things up on Facebook and teaching tons of people, and he's built multiple communities along the way and did stuff with Agora and you name it, right? He built Ad Skills, which is now run by my good friend Liana, right? So it's like that was one of the first people I bought something from. I went to his event. He was kind of put me under his wing for a bit, like, how you could build your agency a bit more. Here's how you could do it with SEO, and here's how you could do it with ads. And I was like, okay. Like I wasn't going from person to person. I was like, once I found a person, I went all in with that person until they told me, hey, you're good now. Like you need to find somebody else. And that's exactly what I'd done. And Justin, I was following him around just for years. Oh, this guy's done SEO for 4 years. I'm gonna do it for 4 years. And then as soon as he pivoted, I was already mid pivot. I'm like, oh, if he's pivoting to paid ads, I'm doing the right move because I'm already in that pivot. So I found myself doing more of that where it's like, let me see what other people are doing with their footsteps, and then I could see where I can adjust it for mine. And it was great because I haven't needed tons of mentors or coaches or anything like that along the way for my agency. When I've hired or purchased anything around advertising, it's been because I'm looking for something that maybe I am missing. Maybe it's process related. There's a new way of advertising with certain types of copy or creative. That's what I purchase or that's what I get coaching on. But I never had to worry about the setup or split testing or how to budget scale because I learned that from doing. So all of my mentorship and coaching has been primarily for like building a business, or maybe it's like one little thing I can do with my ads to make them
Yeah.
more efficient.
Adding skills to your toolbox.
Yep. And then of course I just had natural interest in other things outside of ads that it's like it all worked in tandem. Like it all integrated with what I was doing with advertising, and it's made my life a lot easier because I originally wasn't going to go into advertising. I sort of fell into it and it worked, but it wasn't what I was going to do. I wanted to be an investment banker. I was going to go
Wow.
into finance. I was going to stockbroker, investment banker, something Wall Street related. And then ads came around and I was like, oh, this is pretty easy. And my brain just connected the dots so fast. I was like, maybe I should just do this. And then when no one
Well,
else was
that's the
doing it at
maths
the time,
brain as well, isn't it? Because at the
yep,
end of the day, ads is yes, there's a creative element to it, but it's a maths brain
it's all
is
math
needed.
and charts.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why I connected with it so quickly.
What is there any one? I'm not asking you to name them, but is there any
Sure.
one client that you've had that sticks out that for inspiration to people listening and watching this that
Yeah.
you can say I took them from this maybe without ads to whatever with your services and ads?
Yeah. There was he's still with me to this day. I won't say his name, but he's a, I'll call him a coach. He coaches people in the health and nutrition space.
Mm-hmm.
And this is our fourth year of working together. We signed on like late 2019, had a couple breaks here and there. Things happen, right? So you have to take little breaks in between. But we've definitely worked together for over 4 years. And when he first came to me, everything was organic. He was doing everything organically, hitting people in Messenger, DMs, just like everything was just a hustle. And don't get me wrong, he was doing okay, right? Hey, when you're doing all that and you're working 50 hours a week and you're making 10, 15K a month, maybe 20, like you're doing great. But man, you are grinding all day, having nonstop conversations with people. And he was starting to get burnt out. So he's like, how do I automate this, but also incorporate ads so I don't have to go just hit up people all day? And so we essentially built his original funnel, which was more of like a Manny chat style, automated DMs and then bring them to a phone call style funnel, which Manny chat is still popular now, But when ManyChat first came around, the big thing was get them in the DMs, get them to comment through an ad. Once they're in the DMs, automate the messaging, get them to book a call, right? It was just, you don't talk to them at all. Everything's just auto messaging. So we built that funnel with him. And I think it was like 6 or 7 months in, he went from 10 or 15K a month consistently to now averaging well over 50 per month. And it was quick. It was very fast. And the thing that was alarming for us was we didn't expect it to work so fast. So he also had to build a team. He had to get some closers. Like these were all things he didn't expect. He's like, oh, I'll just go from like 15 to 25 and then from 25 to 30 and I'll just add people along the way. No, it was like, boom, 15 to 50. It was like immediately just boom. And because of that, we had to slow things down, tweak the funnel along the way. We've had to rebuild this funnel, I think, around 6 different times along the way because it's not that the offers changed. The offers improved. It's how it's being delivered. So in these 4 years, I've run his ads. We've changed the same funnel, but the offers never changed. We've changed pricing. We've changed the deliverables, but it's still the same thing. It's still helping people scale their health and nutrition businesses. Now it's download a freebie, book a call. That's it. Here's a free thing, book a call. And that's it. And we simplified it so much so that even now to this day, like now we spend a fair amount of money per day. He spends, $1,500 a day. So it's about 45 grand a month. And he's doing anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 a month consistently, just with a team and everything. And we're still working together to this day. He finally got his dream car a couple months ago. So much so I remember when he told me how much it was and he goes, I'm not going to finance it. I'm going to buy it. I'm like, that's kind of dumb, but okay, I will support because you're my client and you're my friend now because we've worked together for so long. Like whatever you want to do, man, I got you. And we did this thing. And then I remember when he bought it, the first person he sent a text to outside of his mom was he sent it to me and he showed it to me and he goes, see, I told you I was going to get the car. And I'm like, that is from when we first started to now, still lives in the same place, lives in a high rise, got his dream car. It's very expensive. Lambo, like top of the line Lambo that he's had on his wall since the day we were talking. And it's just like the business just runs. He gets to travel, do whatever he wants. Like it's just going. But we started, he already had a 6-figure business. Yeah, you could say it was 6 figures because it's like, he was doing 10 to 15K a month. But if he stopped working, it was 0.
Yeah.
So now it's like he could walk away and it still runs. And that's why, for someone like him, I wouldn't say I took him from 0 to multiple 6. I took him from a point of making 6 figures a year on the low end where he was working all day to now he's making multiple 7 figures and the guy could just travel all the time. And
what did he start with in advertising spend? What can you remember roughly what he was spending a month?
In the beginning, he was spending $100 a day.
Okay.
Now, I know people, and I've run ads for people who've gone from $200 a day to $2,000 a day in several months, right? Wow. Now, my friend could be spending more than $1,500 a day. He chooses not to. Mm-hmm. And the only reason for that is because the health and fitness, health and wellness space, unless you're selling supplements, gets very tired of you very quickly. There is a ceiling. Supplements, you could spend, no joke, because I have a client in supplements, you could spend $50,000 a day and your ads could still perform. But if you're helping coaches and gyms and, Alex Hormozy came from that space, at some point you feel like, man, if I spend more than, let's just make up a number. If I spend more than $3,000 a day, my ads aren't even working anymore. So there's a cap, there's a ceiling. We know what his ceiling is in that space. And every time we've hit that ceiling, everything stops working. So we have found our gap. We stay within that gap, and then we improve the back end. We have retargeting ads for like reminding the book calls, getting people on lessons. Don't forget to download this book. So a lot of money spent on the back end portion of reminders. Don't forget to do this. This thing is coming up. And because of that, our, I'll just call it like the deliverable rate, the way that people show up, their attendance rate, like all those things are much higher because of the fact that we're focusing more on the back end. right? Front end will be fine, but we can't go too fast on the front end. And I mean, going from $100 a day to, $1,500 a day in 4 years is a long time. But
Mm.
we've done $1,500 a day multiple times and then had to bring it back down. And I think the highest we ever went was $2,500 a day. And we started noticing everything was breaking. So it's like, okay, we know where our baseline is now. How do we improve everything else? And hey, he still has a great business, but
It's focusing. It sounds like, yeah, you've hit your ceiling, diminishing returns on the front, so it's focusing on the
yeah,
back to make that work better and more profitable. Yeah,
that's it.
that's
And hey,
amazing.
nothing wrong with a $3 to $4 million a year business either.
Oh,
When it's a team of 10,
yeah, wow,
I think he's
wow,
doing fine. So that's
wow.
just
That's
that's just one
inspirational, man.
example. Yeah.
That inspires me personally to, I know for real entrepreneur, it's what's going to happen, and you'll be my man. It's like you were saying about him. He'd already built up a certain level, which is we were discussing just before we started recording. That's what's needed, and the time will come. I look forward to the day where I can call you up and say, right, let's get on it, because that's where I know things will really get interesting. Because I'm a numbers guy as well. Back in
Yep.
my old business in the adult industry, it was all numbers, it was all conversions, it was spreadsheets.
None of that's changed. It's
Yeah.
it's
So,
everything in the ad game is just numbers and charts. And then of course now you have a lot of people talking about creative and copy. It's like, look, we get it. It's all a part of the equation, but
yeah.
at the end of the day, I still have to understand the numbers to
Mm.
make this all work. And that includes how much I'm spending to get all these other things in place before the ads even go out. Right. So it's like we're our job now is we're playing the creative type and we're playing the accountant. Right. I have to go and get copywriters, I have to get editors. Even with AI, you still need somebody to critique. You still
Mm.
need someone to fine tune.
For sure, yeah.
Right. So there's as much math on the back end as there is the front end when we're trying to deliver these ads to various networks. And like I said, I'm giving you examples with Facebook and Instagram. Ad costs have gone up everywhere on every network. It's just how are you mitigating that risk? How are you putting things out there and evolving with those networks to bring the cost down? The more your ads are engaged with, the cost goes down, right? So it's like, what do you have to do to create those ads that are engaging and get conversions?
Mm.
Because anyone who's run ads knows you can have a ad that looks boring and still do incredibly well. But if you're someone who's very concerned about every penny you spend, you're putting as much attention on the copy and the video as anybody. I have
Mm.
I have a client now whose videos you'd watch and you'd be like, how is this guy even doing well? Because he knows who he's talking to. It's the most
Yeah.
boring video. There's no
That's
engagement on it. But the people who click are practically ready to go. So,
oh,
you know, everyone's methodology is different, but we're all running on the same network, right? We're running the same ad manager. Our campaigns are all built the same way. So in reality, it's just who are we targeting? How are we talking to them? And what are we delivering to them to keep them on screen watching our stuff or viewing our stuff so that they could see if what we're offering to them is beneficial or not. That's all it is. And then it's the math. Does the math make sense? And that's it. I think too many people are overcomplicating it. Maybe that's why I'm not an agency with 200 clients, is because I'm simplifying it so much that it almost seems that I'm wrong. But there's a lot of agency people out there that are like really overcomplicating this whole process, and that's why their results don't match up. They're
mm.
great at selling, but it's like the client results aren't there. It's like
And they're
don't
not going to retain those
yeah.
clients if that's the case.
Name of the game is retention. So,
Yeah, of
I'd rather
course.
be simplifying it and retaining people for years, like I usually do, versus overcomplicating it. And then you're going, this doesn't line up. Something doesn't make sense here. So, yeah.
Very cool, man. Let's have some quick fire questions now, if that's all
Sure.
right, because we could talk we were penciling in 45 minutes for this, but we've already hit that and we've not scratched the surface. Maybe at some point you'll have to come back for a round two. But
Sure.
some quick fire stuff. What's your definition of success?
Being able to do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want. any day of the week. So for example, I get to chill with my kid every day. You know, I'm in my office right now. He's upstairs. He can come down here and we can screw around, play games, do whatever. And I'm still in the middle of a work day. And that's great because I can do that. Most people can't. There's a lot of people right now at work who are away from their kids and want to be with their kids, but they can't because they need to go support their family. I get to be home and chill with my kid every day. And even if he was in school, as soon as he's back from school, I'm still here, right? So I get to be around my family every single day. I could leave right now if I want. I can go out to breakfast, take as much time as I want, right? It's the ability to have the freedom to dictate how I'm utilizing my time
Being an
and how it's
entrepreneur
being
is
distributed.
about the freedom for me.
Yep.
That's all money is. Money is freedom.
Yeah. Money creates
I
choices. That's
Yeah,
it.
I've looked back at my 35 years and I have some regrets. I mean, my kids are older now, 20, 24, but during my height of 22 years ago, I didn't spend anywhere near as much time as I should have done with my eldest son. Um, you look back at that, not a lot you can do about it, but you certainly learn from it. It's great
Hmm.
now. There are young adults and what have you. But certainly, I say to people, of all the years, of all the memories of over the years that I've looked back on, I never look back at think, oh, I had that much money in the bank or whatever. It was the experiences I had personally or with my partner, wife, or the people that I remember
Hmm.
that being a successful entrepreneur and having the money to do those things, you'll forget. On
Yep.
your deathbed, you won't think, oh, I had, 500,000 here or whatever. You will think back to the times you
What you were
spent with
doing.
other people. Yeah. And
Yep.
and that's what it is. Um,
Yep.
if you were starting again, what would you do or what would you do different, if anything?
There's a lot of tools now that weren't available back when I started. So I definitely would create a funnel specific to my agency. Because by the way, I've never created a funnel for my agency. All the people that come to
Wow.
me either know about me, I do podcasts and they find out about me, or I go to an event and talk or just mingle. Like I'm a very much in-person event, meetup type of individual. And that's how I get a lot of people to work with me. But if I was to do the opposite of that, I would have definitely built a funnel for me. I would have been running ads for me and talked more about my methodology because you've seen my case studies before. They go crazy. Like people love my case studies and I don't write them that often. It's like an event. Right? When I put them out, it's like I put a lot of attention on this. But imagine if I would have turned those into ads and I never did. I just put them out for my friends and colleagues and I'm like, look at this cool stuff that I've discovered. Right? And so I would definitely build a funnel with all my case studies, talking about what we've learned along the way, how we've been applying it to clients. And that's basically my lead generator. I know for a fact I'd be signing clients left and right doing that. I just have no reason to now because I have a process. But
Mm-hmm.
I would have definitely started out with taking my results from my own tests, putting it out there as ads. I would have built more of a base of, I hate to say the online guru side of things, but it's like I've been doing this for a while. So I look back and I'm like, man, I really should have been building a list from day one. I really should have because I run ads for people. I've built lists tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and I never really did it for myself because I was so focused on everyone else but me. And so I would have put a lot more attention on my own stuff. I would have been educating a lot sooner. I waited 10 years before I was like, okay, I'm ready to sell something. Like I waited a long time. So it just would have been moving all of the stuff for me. I would have moved it to the forefront and I would have been building it along the way as I was building the agency instead of building the agency all the time and neglecting myself. Because I could see now where it's a lot harder to build up my own stuff. Not because I don't have the time. It's like I'm so good at the other stuff that I could look at my stuff and I don't
If
want
you do
I don't know
say
if I
so
even want to do
yourself,
this.
David,
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. But I really do believe I would have put a lot more attention on my own stuff, built a funnel for me. I would have branded myself a lot more, put more posts up. I put up a lot of personal stuff now, but like I would have been talking about it a lot sooner, show more of like life behind the scenes of how I run the business and all that. I just think I would have been more proactive on that.
Mm.
And it would have changed a lot about how my business operates today, maybe even make more money. I just know it would have taken a lot more time. And that's probably what stopped me from doing it in the first place. But now I look at it and I'm like, they probably should have done it anyway. Because
Mm.
now it's like the starter kit. If you start an agency today, you have to be posting about you because there's nothing
Mm.
else to relate to. And I wasn't doing that at all, and I got very lucky. So yeah, it's
Cool,
I
man.
definitely would have changed the dynamic of that.
Briefly, let's talk about how you deal with stress and a bit about mental health. I'm passionate about talking about it. I think being an entrepreneur is can be one of the most stressful and also isolating endeavors that
Yes.
people can take. I'm
Yeah.
passionate about talking about it because I don't believe enough men, let alone men who are real entrepreneurs, don't talk about it. How do you deal
Yep.
with stress? What's your key to keeping level and
Hmm.
moving forward, being positive? Have you experienced stress of much, and if so, how did you deal with
Yeah.
it?
I had a lot of stress in the early days, like a lot. I was broke twice, almost near bankruptcy one of those times, and I had actual depression, not clinically, but I know I was depressed because I was thinking about the other side, if you know what I mean. So like I've
Mm-hmm.
been very low before.
Well,
Now have I been to
let
the
me just interrupt you there.
sure.
I experienced that, and I didn't even know I was experiencing that. People that have listened to this before may have heard me talk about it, but I'll say it again for the purposes of reassuring people and yourself, not to
Hmm.
reassure you, but you can reassure other people that when you get to that, it's very hard to see anything else.
Yep.
23rd of February 2017, didn't know I'd got to that state. I'd been on antidepressants for a number of years, and I didn't even know. I had a 6 hour period of my life that I completely forgot about. I could not tell how I got there. I can't remember the official terminology my doctor said it was. Um, but I was there in a car with hose pipe, tape, Jack Daniels, and a load of pills, and I could not have told you how I got there. Now, did it creep up on you? Was it just purely situation? Because the worst part of depression is people that are depressed and they don't know why. For me, it's
Yeah.
always been I can objectively say this is the cause of it and what have you. So,
Mine wasn't an event, it was a buildup. So mine
yeah,
was a series of events just stacking on each other and then having no one to talk to about it.
there
You
we
know,
go.
it's the feeling of like I'm doing this alone. And here's the thing, most people realize you can have a significant other and you don't want to tell them you're feeling this, which is what
Mm-hmm.
this was my situation. At the time, my now wife, which back then was my girlfriend, I wasn't waking up every day going, I got to tell her how I feel. I was waking up every day going, I hope she doesn't think I'm a loser. I hope she doesn't leave me because I have nothing, right? And I
Can
was
I hate to keep interrupting on this, but it's
sure.
this is what I'm so passionate about. You hate to think you would hate her to think you're a loser. Um, so was your fear unfounded fear, obviously, but was your
Yeah, yeah.
fear that she'd just think I'm going to leave him, or she wouldn't get it, or you felt
It
weak?
was it was a combination. It's like she understands the grind, but is she willing to stay for that grind? Right? If this all doesn't work out and I go get a job and I just stay with the job, is that good enough? Because remember when I first met her, my whole thing was like, I'm gonna build this thing. I was already putting the the forecast of what I'm gonna do with my life in the picture. And I was doing that from day one. I'm like, I'm doing this thing because I'm an entrepreneur. I know I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna make it work. And of course, I had part-time jobs here and there because I'm like, I gotta put food on the table, I gotta live, right? But I'm gonna build this thing and I'm gonna figure it out. And my whole thought was, oh, this isn't gonna I hope she doesn't leave if this doesn't work. Or I hope she doesn't think of me differently because this doesn't quite work out. And we're going down. Like our bank account is just creeping down to the point where we're just working for nothing. So hopefully we don't just fall away from each other because it's like my stuff didn't work out. Everything was about me. I was putting all the blame on me. I was like, it's all me, it's all me, it's all me. So naturally, I'm just like, it's like punching myself in the face constantly. And it's like, no matter what I did, I was like, it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough, which in translation means I don't feel I'm enough. I'm not worthy. This is, I have no worth in this world. It was just a lot of beating myself up. And so I kept having the feeling of I got to make this work. And all of that scarcity was translating into how I was talking to people. And I knew that they could feel that I was desperate. And that's why a lot of people didn't work with me. So, of course, and this is all in retrospect, because at the time I didn't know I was doing this. I just thought, oh, no one wants to work with me. What the hell's going on? I know I'm really good at what I do, but I was coming off as being needy and just like very desperate for things. And it pulled people away. They were just like, no, no, I can't. So we got to the point where I had no clients, which was, there was not one time where I had zero. Even in the very beginning, that time period of having from 0 to 1 was only a couple weeks. It was boom. I was really good at talking to people. This was like a 6 month gap of just like gone. I got nothing. There's no clients. I'm not getting consults. I didn't have a course at the time. I didn't know how to even build one, right? So I'm just in this mode of like, got to get clients, got to get clients. I was going to events, not signing people. I was jumping on webinars. No one wanted to work with me. Just like all these weird things kept happening. Didn't know why. And I still had a part-time job. And I was like, this isn't even enough to pay all of our bills. Her job plus mine combined, we're still short. I have to at least have one client to live, and I have zero. So for 6 months, it just kept going down, 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 down until Halloween 2013, I believe it was. I'm trying to remember the exact year, but it was Halloween. I remember that because I couldn't afford buying candy for the kids that came to our door.
Wow. Wow.
So people were coming to the door. We were living in a condo. There was a building full of kids. Couldn't give them anything. Nothing. So I had my mental breakdown sitting in my office because I literally on the floor by my whiteboard that's empty, which was pure symbolism for I have nothing, right? It was just like nothing
Wow.
is coming to mind right now. I can't even write. I want to write. Nothing is there. So I had my mental breakdown. You ever see those movies where it's like the person's sitting in the corner, they're sitting in the bathtub and they're just like crying? I was literally in the corner of my office, just crying, just nonstop. And then at some point, something clicked. And I remember it because I was just sitting there and it was like all of a sudden my body just shifted and it's like, hey, I have an idea. And it's like just went to my whiteboard and I started writing everything out. It was a very strange like my body was holding on to stuff. It let it all out for hours. Let it all out. And when it was finally empty of all this feeling, all of a sudden one idea came up. And I was searching for the idea the whole time, and that idea was there. It was just pulled down by all the other bullshit. So it was like as soon as I let everything out, it was like that idea came up. It was like 2 a.m. I wrote it all down. And all the idea was to contact every single friend I had on my Facebook account, which back then there wasn't a cap. There wasn't a 25-person conversation cap back then. You could hit up 700 people and you'd be fine. And all the idea was contact every single person and ask them one question in exchange for I'll help them with their ads. And that question was, if you had to start over and you had one piece of advice for me so I could rebuild my life and my business, what would it be? Just give me one piece of advice. And then in exchange for that, I will either audit your ad account or I'll run your ads for you. Now, no one had me run their ads for free, but I did 77 audits in a week, which I don't know if anyone's ever done an ad account audit. Now it takes me 15, 20 minutes. Back then it took like 45 minutes to an hour. So you can imagine, like, I did a ton of audits and there were plenty of people who were like, no audit, you're fine. But 77 people gave me a chance. And not only did I do the audit, but within a week of me doing all those audits, I also had new clients sign on because of those audits. Wow. So that random idea, 2 a.m. the following day, after crying for hours, not knowing what the hell to do and being like, this is over, this is dumb, like, why am I doing just everything, beating myself up and being like, I don't even know if I should be here. Like, this is all of it is over, all of it. It's like everything was coming out. After that whole entire session, wrote the idea, executed on the idea the next day. I slept maybe 2 hours. Woke up, started hitting up everybody. 77 audits in a week, 7 clients signed on, and I made $10,500. And I avoided bankruptcy, paid our rent, and I had a month to figure shit out. All within a week of that moment. And so when I made that money, it actually didn't even turn into like, oh, I have a month to figure it out. It actually was enough to push things forward, because those same people that I was now running ads for, I was turning them over so fast in terms of like, I was getting them results so quickly that they started to refer people to me. So it was like the kickstart of like 70. That's why 7 to me is such an important number. 77 audits. I had 7 clients. Next thing you know, when I doubled within a month, I went from 7 to 14. I was like, what the hell's going on here? Now my problem is, how do I do all this stuff by myself?
Wow.
Right. So
What a story.
it was in such a short period of time. And it was like, and I always remember, that's why every Halloween, I'm giving out candy to everybody. Like, I'm just like, let's flood the block with candy. Like I'm now it's like, that's what I do every year. But it was one of those things where it's like, you know, I wasn't even sure if I was going to not let alone keep doing what I was doing. I was like, my life is over. Everyone's going to hate me. Everyone thinks I'm a loser. None of this stuff works, because I was just gassing myself up all the time. I'm the best. I'm great. I could do this. And I didn't believe it. And then even the people around me didn't believe it. Now, I don't even say anything. And my friends are like, you're that confident on this? I'm like, I'm like, no one can touch me. Period. This is what I do. Anyone who says otherwise is full of it. I know I'm one of the best in the world at this stuff. End of story. Doesn't matter, because I've done this for 17 years. I've studied this like the back of my hand. I know this stuff.
And at the same time, that week shift must have been a massive change in your relationship with your girlfriend at the time, because
100%. 100%. And then
would
stress.
have been amazing.
Stress as a whole is not even it. It doesn't phase me the same, because I've already felt what it was like to be at the absolute low. Now, don't get me wrong.
Resilience is builded. Resilience is built from all of this stuff. People say to me, you're so calm and nothing really gets you phased. And it's because of all the stuff we've experienced that we realize not a lot matters. It'll work out and things will always happen at the right time.
I mean, I went through a similar situation in the 2020, 2021 time period. It wasn't in the sense of like everything fell apart, but like I lost half my clients in a week when we went on lockdown. Half the business gone because of panic. And then my team is like, how are we going to get paid? You're fine. You're fine. You're not going to get fired. I got you. But what they didn't realize was I only gave them 6 months to figure it out. Because I'm like, we have 15 clients. You're all taken care of. I still got to pay me. I still have software I got to pay for. I got others. I got a lawyer I got to pay. I got an accountant. I got to pay a lot of people. And 15 clients supports the business running, and it barely supports paying me. So if we don't have 16 clients or 18, I can't have everybody. I got to start getting rid of somebody. So that was the first time in years that I even had that experience. I was like, oh man, I went like a 7-year stretch of just everything was killing it. And then 7 again. I was like, well, there we go. All of a sudden, 7 years later, another experience. Now it's like the universe is testing me. So threw something at me, got through it. Took 6 months. We rebounded right back. It was like we went from 30 clients to 15, from 15 back to 28 within that time period. And we were making more this time around because I changed a lot of things. But at the same time, got kicked out of our house because we're leasing. House was sold, so we got kicked out. And my kid was only 6 months old. So my wife couldn't help move. So I had to do the whole move myself.
Oh, wow.
So imagine you're doing that mid-pandemic. Your team's worried about where their check's coming from. You're not making anything. And now you got to move all at the same time while you have a 6-month-old. So it's like I was being tested multiple ways back then. I mean, that wasn't even that long ago, but that was the last time I had like a really stressful situation.
But ultimately, the 7 years prior experience equipped you a lot better to deal with that.
100%. Because I was able to, not only was I able to like fully take a moment, take it in, and then analyze and create a plan. But here's the funny thing. When I had that whole situation years earlier, where it was just one singular whiteboard and I just wrote everything down. The house that I was in that we got kicked at, I had 3 whiteboards, and every whiteboard symbolized like, this is a planning board, this is the execution board, and this is what's been done and what the results are. So when I had my moment of like, damn, I gotta move. I can't even keep the whiteboards. Like I gotta get rid of stuff. But before I got rid of the boards, I did one last plan. So I did my whole plan, the actions, and what the results would be. And so before we got completely out of that house, every single thing I planned out was done. So that board was completely empty by the time we had to move. The action plan was like 90% done. So I erased most of that stuff. And then the last board was just check, 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 check. So it's a very different situation from before when it was like I had nothing. This one was like, I have a shitload of ideas and we're going to do all of it and we're going to execute. And by the time this is all done, I can breathe because even with the move, I'm okay. And that's exactly what happened because 6 months later, we were thriving again. I was paying myself and all I had to do was find a new place to live. Now that took us 7 more months because when you're all locked down and you can't look at a house, it's a problem. But we did figure it out, and now I'm in the house that we ended up finding. But yeah, it was the second time that I experienced like a complete shift, and it was like, what am I gonna do now? But instead of panicking and crawling into a ball, it was like, I got this. I'm gonna figure this out. But I have to calm down before I start coming up with this plan. Because if I start going into panic, everything I do is reactive. I'm not going to do everything reactively. It has to
desperation,
fit
desperation, and panic screws you for sure.
Yep. So now it's like when I have people come to me for consults and they're freaking out about their business, I'm like, let's take a moment here. Like, you know what? I'm gonna walk you through an exercise. You'll calm down and realize everything you're freaking out about is not that big of a deal. And then you'll get clear on your plan. But until then, we're not going to map out a plan until you calm down. Like you got to you have to let all that tension out the body before we start mapping out a plan. And then we could talk it out. So,
that's
I got plenty of hobbies now.
Yeah, so, what hobbies have you got?
So obviously you can see there's sneakers here, right?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I've taken on probably I hate to say like expensive hobbies, but it's the things that like they can be expensive if you go all in with it, or you could just enjoy them for what they are. So like, for example, yes, I love sneakers. I'm not buying hundreds of pairs of sneakers. I'm just buying the stuff that I like. Because I remember as a kid, I always wanted to have multiple sneakers, but I could only afford one or two. Now I have adult money. I can have 12, right? It's like I can get them when it's something that I really like, or if I like watches, right? It's like it's one of those things where yes, they could be an expensive hobby, but I also learn about these things. I have books learning about the sneaker culture and the watch culture and how things are built and why they're done a certain way. Because as much as I'm investing or buying into the hobby, it also ties into what I do. Because a lot of this is all storytelling. A lot of this is about branding and messaging and how they were able to scale a business. And so I'm not only making my hobbies a part of the business, is like I'm enjoying all of it. I'm learning business. I'm buying things that make me happy. I'm using them. Like I'm using them. Like I'm not just buying stuff. I'm wearing them. I'm using them. And then at the same time, it's like, yeah, I love sports. So I watch more sports. Yeah, I love wrestling. Like I'm a child because I like storytelling. So I go more into those things where for years I neglected myself from it, not because I couldn't afford them, but because I told myself it's not business, it's not ads, it's not important. The more I've done sneaker stuff, the more watches I've bought, the more books I've consumed, the better everything has become. The more wrestling I watch, the better I get at writing stories. Like I've just naturally found ways to tie it all into what I do So I never feel guilty about doing them. And before, that was my problem. I can't watch basketball. I got to work on the business.
I completely know what you mean. You have to have that off time. You and I look at a computer way too much compared to many.
You can't even see this, but I got a 49-inch screen in front of me and a laptop. Like, that's already too much. Yeah. But it's effective for me, but it's too much. I shouldn't be in front of it, and I'm aware of that. But that's also why I walk away a lot. You know,
that's cool, man. That's really cool. We could talk. I feel like we could talk for at least another hour, but we can't today. And maybe at some point we can come back and do another episode. But I feel that this has been you've been really open and honest and real, which is the whole thing. And it's given an insight into the ad world. Like I said, I will be using you. Hopefully, at some point in 2024, I will be coming to you and saying, right, let's go. But I think from people that have listened to this and will be watching it, it's given a good insight into it. And I really do appreciate you talking about the other side of life, because I'm on a mission for people to tell it how it is. And your stories, anybody listening or watching this can't fail to be inspired by what you've shared.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, man.
Absolutely, not a problem. Pleasure to share.
Thanks, man.
You've been listening to the Get Real podcast with Mark Lyford. Being an entrepreneur isn't all glitz and glamour. Entrepreneurs are some of the most hard-working people in the world. And within entrepreneurship, there's life, mental health, business, ups and downs. And that's why we exist. Our passion is to talk about all of it with no BS. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Find Mark on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube at Mark Lyford. And be sure to hit the website, realeNtrepreneur.com. From there, get his book. You won't be disappointed. See you next time on Get Real.